suing the members of parliament, and they won't have any, freedom to say anything or to discuss anything, then what is the point in having parliament in the first place? Okay, so very simple. A member enjoys immunity from court action for publication by or under the authority of either house, any report, paper, votes, or proceedings. So if anything has been discussed in Lok Sabha, okay, or if any report has been discussed or any paper has been distributed in Lok Sabha, a member of Lok Sabha can publish that to the press, to the media, provided he is authorized by Lok Sabha. And nobody can sue that person for doing that. As simple as that. Next, a member enjoys the freedom from being summoned by any court without the leave of the House to give evidence as a witness while the parliament is in session. Okay? So currently the parliament is in session, for example, and a member of Lok Sabha was summoned by any court to appear as a witness. Okay? To appear as a witness. That is the key word here. Now, he can go there if he is given the leave of the House or permission of the House. If the House is not giving permission, then he need not appear in the court. I hope you're understanding. And court cannot take any action on him. Clear, right? So these are the various individual privileges that are enjoyed by members of parliament. So shall we just go through this again? Or shall I just continue? So very simple. First, freedom from being arrested in civil cases when the parliament is in session. Okay? And this is not only applicable when the parliament is in session, it is also applicable for a period of 40 days before and after such session. So I personally feel that there is no merit here. And this freedom does not extend to preventive detention and in criminal cases. Next, a member cannot be arrested within the premises of the House. This is to safeguard the honor and dignity of the premises of the parliament. Next, freedom of speech. Every member of parliament has freedom of speech. Okay, so he can say anything in the House, provided that is, within the rules of the House, that is subjected to the rules of the House. And for saying anything in the parliament, a member of parliament cannot be sued by any other person. No court in India can take action against a member of parliament for saying anything in the parliament, provided that is subjected to the rules of the House. Okay? Next. A member enjoys immunity from court action for publication by or under the authority of either House. This phrase is very, very important. Only when the House authorizes that person. So a member enjoys immunity from court action for publication by or under the authority of either House, any report, paper, votes, or proceedings. And for publishing that, nobody can sue that person. No court in India can question that person, saying that, why did you publish that? Or why did you reveal this to the people? Provided the House authorizes that person. Next, a member enjoys the freedom from being summoned by any court without the permission of the House to give evidence as a witness while the parliament is in session. As simple as that. So these are the individual privileges that are enjoyed by the members. Yes, if the speaker gives permission, then the person can go and appear as a witness in the court to give evidence.
Sir?
Yes.
Can we say that parliament, in the fifth point, parliament is on the higher upper side than the judiciary?
Not exactly. See, the condition is when parliament is in session. When parliament is in session, we expect the members to be in the parliament, right? We expect the members to be in the parliament. We expect the members to deliberate, to question, to criticize, to vote. So it is not that parliament is superior to judiciary. This case can wait. The case that is happening in the court can wait. But the parliament is in session and the business of the government has to be conducted. Or there should be a discussion on important issues of national importance, for example. Then obviously that will take precedence over the court case. But it doesn't mean parliament is superior to judiciary. Okay? When parliament is in session, we expect the members of parliament to be in the parliament. And, if a court is summoning them, saying that come to the court, appear as witness, give evidence, then you're not allowing the member of parliament to discharge this function. Okay, and that is very bad, right? So that is the reason a member enjoys this freedom. Okay, now moving on, let us discuss about collective privileges.
Sir, this
Yes.
freedom is valid for state legislative assemblies also.
Absolutely. This is common for both parliament as well as members of legislative assemblies of states. Okay. Now,
Okay, sir.
collective privileges. So these are applicable to the houses. Both the houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, as a whole, enjoy certain privileges. So what are they? The right to publish debates and proceedings, and the right to restrain others from doing so. Okay? For example, debates happening in Rajya Sabha or proceedings of Rajya Sabha. Rajya Sabha has a right to publish all those in any format. Let it be in the form of, a video, okay, like a television broadcast, or it can be radio broadcast, or it can be print media. It can be any media. And the houses also have a right to restrain others from publishing that. But the press has the freedom to publish true reports of parliamentary proceedings without the prior permission of the House. So we cannot deny this, right? Journalism, press, very, very important. One of the fundamental pillars of democracy. So even without the permission of the House, press has the freedom to publish reports of the parliamentary proceedings, provided they are true. Clear, right? So the point is very simple. Both the houses have a right to publish debates and proceedings in any format they want. And they have a right to restrain others from doing so. But this is not applicable to the press. Okay? Press has the freedom to publish true reports of the parliamentary proceedings, even without the prior permission of the House. But press does not have any freedom if it is a case of secret sitting of the House. What do you mean by secret sitting? Except the members, nobody else will be there in the House. No stranger will be there without the permission of the presiding officer. I hope you're understanding. Generally, the media people will sit in the galleries. Okay. So if it is a secret sitting, nobody will be present in the galleries. If anybody is present, he will be present only with the permission of the presiding officer. So no strangers or no outsiders will be present in the chamber when the House is going for secret sitting. Only the members will be present. That is the meaning of secret sitting. Okay. So this press freedom is not applicable in the case of secret sitting of the House. First of all, they won't be in the chamber of the House. They'll be asked to go out. So obviously they cannot cover the proceedings in the House when the House is going for secret sitting. Clear, right? Next, both the houses have a right to exclude strangers from its proceedings. Okay, what do you mean by strangers? Outsiders who are not members. Next, both the houses have a right to regulate internal affairs of the House without interference from the court. Okay, for example, if a few members are unruly, they are disrupting the House, then the presiding officers have a power to, suspend them or to discipline them. So courts need not interfere here. The presiding officers are acting as quasi-judicial authorities here. So basically, both the houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, have a right to regulate the internal affairs. They'll do that with the help of rules. They'll do that with the help of presiding officer. Okay. And we don't need any interference from the court. Because all the three organs, legislature, executive, and judiciary, are powerful in their own sphere. And we need clear-cut separation. Separation means all the organs should respect each other. We don't want judiciary interfering in legislature. In the same way, we don't want legislature interfering in judiciary. Next, the houses can make rules to regulate their own procedure and can adjudicate upon such matters. So we have discussed that both the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha have their own set of rules. Okay. Now, simply having rules is not enough. The rules should be enforced. And that enforcement is done by presiding officers. And not only enforcement, sometimes there is a need for adjudication also. What do you mean by adjudication? Solving a dispute and giving judgment. That is the meaning of adjudication. See, for example, there are rules of Lok Sabha. there is a sentence given. So different people will give different meaning to that sentence. But whatever speaker says, that is the final meaning. Okay. So not only having rules, enforcement of the rules, and adjudication. That means solving of disputes and giving judgment. All these are done within the house only. Okay. There is no need for any external interference. Next, the houses can punish members and outsiders for breach of its privileges or for contempt. So what is the meaning of this point? We are going to discuss now. So apart from fifth point, did you understand all the 4 points? Tell me. What is the fifth point we are going to discuss now, guys? Just don't worry about that. But what about the remaining 4 points? Did you understand that?
Understood, sir.
Very simple,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay, moving on. Now, breach of privilege and contempt of the house. Okay. See, this point is very, very important. When any individual or authority disregards or attacks any of the privileges, rights, and immunities, either of members or of the houses, the offense is called breach of privilege and it is punishable by the concerned house. Did you understand? So when any individual or any authority, like any government body, disregards or attacks any of the privileges, either of the members or of the houses, such an action is called breach of privilege and it is punishable by the concerned house. Okay. Now, what do you mean by contempt? Contempt of the house may be defined as any act which obstructs or impedes either house in the performance of its functions, or which obstructs or impedes any member or any officer of such house in the discharge of their duty. Okay? This is not the only meaning of contempt. There is also one more meaning of contempt. What is that? Actions in the nature of offenses against the authority or dignity of the house, such as disobedience of its legitimate orders or libels upon itself. What do you mean by libels? Simply accusing without any merit, without any evidence. That is the meaning of libels. Or libels upon itself, its members or officers is also punishable as contempt of the house. So don't worry, all these are very, very simple. First of all, tell me, did you understand this first point? The meaning of breach of privilege. Let us go step by step. Let us go very slow. There's absolutely no need to worry at all. So guys, tell me, did you understand the first point? Did you understand the meaning of breach of privilege? Somebody respond.
Sir, I have doubt in first point.
Yes.
What if a marshal has been called when the
Okay.
ruckus is going on
Okay.
under the instruction of presiding officer?
Then obviously you cannot say that, there is breach of privilege, because who called the marshal in the first place? Speaker.
Presiding
Who is the
officer.
speaker? The guardian of privileges.
Right.
And whatever speaker does in the house, that is final. Nobody can question him. So obviously you cannot call it as, breach of privilege. Okay, first of all,
okay.
if for example, I'm a member of Lok Sabha,
Right.
and my privilege has been breached, to whom I go and complain? To the speaker, right?
Right.
So if speaker himself is punishing me, that means I've done something very bad. So then I cannot claim that my privilege has been breached. It doesn't make any sense at all. Okay. So the first point is clear. Everybody understood that. Now,
Yes.
let us try to understand the definition of contempt of the house. Any action that is obstructing or impeding. What do you mean by impeding? Stopping either house in performance of its functions, or obstructs or impedes any member or any officer of such house in discharge of their duty. Excuse me. So when I say officer of the house, during each meeting of Lok Sabha, the Secretary General of Lok Sabha will be present. And during each meeting of Rajya Sabha, the Secretary General of Rajya Sabha will also be present. So if you are harassing those officers, if you're not allowing those officers to discharge their function, even that is considered to be contempt of the house. Okay? So very simple. You are obstructing or impeding either of the house, Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, from doing its function, or you're obstructing or impeding members of the House or officers of the House from discharging their functions, then it is called contempt. As simple as that. Excuse me. Now, this is not the only meaning given for contempt. There is one more meaning for the word contempt. What is that? Actions in nature of offenses against the authority or dignity of the House, such as disobedience of its legitimate orders or libels upon itself or its members or officers, is also punishable as contempt of the House. What do you mean by libels? Simply accusing or abusing, the House or the members without any proper reason, without any evidence. That is called libel. Even that is considered to be contempt of the House. Okay. Or the speaker orders something and a person is not obeying that. Even that is considered to be contempt. Okay. The same thing is also applicable for courts. There is something called contempt of the court. If you are simply accusing the court, you are abusing the court. You are literally using vulgar language, unparliamentary language, and you are abusing the court. Or you are accusing the court of corruption when you don't have any evidence with you. Or you are voluntarily disobeying the lawful order given by court. That is considered to be contempt of the court. And that is a punishable offense. In the same way, contempt of the House is also a punishable offense. Clear, right? Now, a member wishing to raise a question of privilege has to give a notice in writing to the Secretary General before the commencement of the sitting. So commencement of sitting generally happens at 11 a.m., right? So before that, if any person feels that his privileges have been breached, then that person has to give a petition, not a petition, basically a notice in writing to the concerned Secretary General before the commencement of the sitting. Okay? And then a question of privilege is accorded top priority over other items in the list of business. So for that day, the first item of discussion will be this question of privilege. This is given the highest priority. All the other matters like discussions, passing of bills, everything will be postponed. Everything will be rescheduled. First, this will be questioned. This will be discussed. Next, the usual matter is to refer the matter of complaint to the Committee of Privileges. This is one of the parliamentary committees. And the House defers the judgment until the report of the committee has been presented. Okay? So just imagine that a member of Lok Sabha gives a notice in writing to the Secretary General of Lok Sabha. And then the Secretary General will, give this information to the Speaker. Then the Speaker will refer the matter to the Committee of Privileges. Then the Committee of Privileges will investigate, look into the matter, and give a report to Speaker. Till then, the Lok Sabha will not take any action. That is the meaning of deferring the judgment. So guys, did you get this? With this, we are done with the concept of parliamentary privileges. So any doubts anybody has? No doubts? Everybody understood this? Okay, very good. Now, moving on. Let us discuss about the legislative procedure. Okay. Now, legislative proposals are initiated in Parliament in the form of bills. Legislative proposals are called bills. Okay. Though most bills are introduced by the government, private members can also introduce bills. We have discussed about this. I told you the difference between public member and private member. So every other member, except ministers, are private members. All the ministers are public members. Okay? So usually most of the bills are introduced by the government, by the public members. Sometimes private members will also introduce their bills. Whether it will pass or not, that is a different question. But private members are also entitled to introduce their bills. Anyway, we will discuss about private member bills also. Don't worry. Now, The legislative procedure differs in ordinary bills and money bills. For ordinary bills, the legislative procedure is different, and for money bills, the legislative procedure is different. So first, let us look at ordinary bill. An ordinary bill can be introduced in either house, according to Article 107. Okay, so an ordinary bill, guys, please mute your audio, do not disturb the class. An ordinary bill can be introduced in either Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. Next, an ordinary bill must be passed by both the houses. A bill passes through certain stages in each house before being presented to the president for his assent. Okay, so what are the stages and what is the legislative procedure we are going to discuss now. Now, for example, I am a public member. For example, I am the Minister for Tourism and I want to introduce a bill. So first, I have to take the permission of the House. Permission of the House is nothing but permission of the Speaker. I have to take the permission of the House to introduce the bill. Once the House grants the leave, the mover introduces the bill and makes a brief speech regarding the aims and objectives of the bill. Okay, so I will take the permission of the House will give permission, then I will introduce the bill. I will read the title of the bill, and I will make a very brief speech explaining the overall aims and objectives of the bill. So this stage is known as first reading. And during this stage, no discussion on the bill takes place. I hope you're understanding. Now, after the introduction, the member in charge of the bill, what do you mean by that? The person who introduced the bill can make a request that the bill be taken into consideration immediately or at any other fixed date. Next, the bill be referred to a select committee of Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, or the bill be referred to a joint committee of both the houses, or the bill be circulated for the purpose of eliciting public opinion on it. Okay, so as soon as I present my bill, I'll make a brief speech, and after that, I can make a request for either of these four things. I can request the House to immediately take the bill into consideration. That means discuss it now, debate it now, and pass it now. Or I can ask the bill to be referred to a select committee of either Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. Or I can ask the bill to be referred to a joint committee of both the houses. Or I can ask the bill to be published to the people, so that I just want to know what is people's opinion on it. I have these four options. So during this stage, the principles of the bill and its general provisions are discussed. And this stage is called second reading. Okay, so basically what happens at second reading, the principles of the bill and the general provisions are discussed. And not only that, the member in charge of the bill can request the House to do either of these four things. So this stage is called the second reading. So usually the practice is to refer the bill to a select committee of the House. Let it be Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, they have select committees whose main purpose is to scrutinize the bill. So they will examine the bill thoroughly, clause by clause, point by point. And they can also suggest amendments without changing the principles of the bill. Without changing the philosophy behind the bill, they can suggest few amendments. Okay? So after scrutiny, the committee reports the bill back to the House. The House, after receiving the bill from the select committee, considers the provisions of the bill clause by clause. Each clause is discussed and voted upon separately. The members can also move amendments, and if accepted, they become part of the bill. Clear, right? And after this, a general discussion happens on the bill, and a formal voting for the acceptance or rejection of the bill is held. And this is called third reading stage. No amendments are allowed at this stage. If the majority of the members vote in favor of the bill, it is considered as passed by the House. And if it is passed, it is authenticated by the presiding officer of the House. The presiding officer will put a signature saying that, yes, this bill was passed by majority of the members. And then it will be sent to the other house. And in the other house, the bill will go through all the 3 stages again, all the same 3 stages again, the same procedure again. And if the bill is passed in that house also, it will be sent to the president for assent. So this is the legislative procedure for ordinary bills. So I'll just explain this again. Very simple. The permit